Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Hassan. Thank you for joining me with this live stream. It is Thursday, February 27th, 2025, and we attempt to try to do these on Wednesdays, but I just was involved with an expert witness gig, so wasn't able to do it yesterday. And so many people are saying how valuable they find the live streams. They really appreciate the ability to interact with me and ask me questions and do a much more spontaneous thing. So thank you for joining me. Of course, we're recording as well. So this week's podcast and Substack guest was Dr. Stuart Schulman, who is an expert on Twitter and had been doing a tremendous amount of research on Twitter. And we talked about the first posts of QAnon, its connection to Michael Flynn, and so many other interesting things. And next week's podcast is amazing. Maricha Shaka of Stanford's Global Anti-Cyber Terrorism Center will be my guest, who wrote a great book called Tech Coup, Saving Democracy from Silicon Valley. So that's coming up. And we talked about, because she was a Dutch parliamentarian, Vance's trip to Europe, criticizing Europe for its failure to have free speech, which is total BS, because Europe has free speech, but they have responsible free speech, and not the version that America has been subjected to, which is messaging that bad actors who are pushing fossil fuels, for example, like the Coke corporate empire, saying we want free speech, and they have a front group called FIRE, but we can't talk about their pollution or their desire not to have any regulation, or the fact that the government gives them lots of money, and fossil fuel companies as well. So this whole nonsense, Elon Musk, we need free speech. But when Tesla owners have bad accidents, he'll sue them because he doesn't want them to say how terrible a car it is. So I think a lot of the people listening to my show and my podcast and read my books are on to the paradigm of authoritarian cult mind control. But I'm hoping to reach out to more and more disaffected GOP folks, people who voted for Trump and other GOP politicians who are now losing their job or losing their funds, as in farmers who depend on USAID funds to grow crops so that we can feed the world's poor. So I've been saying this for years. Family members, friends, coworkers especially, if you know people who have been ardent Trump supporters or GOP supporters, it's really time to start reigniting a warm relationship with these people. Seriously. I know so many people who just cut off contact, blocked them, called people who supported Trump all kinds of terrible names. Just apologize and get back into their lives. And when you do, please don't try to persuade them with facts or shove it down their throats. This is what's going to turn them off. What will work is reigniting their authentic self and your past relationship, that warm memories, and ask them if it's okay if you ask what they're thinking and what they're feeling about the recent events since the inauguration took place, and see what they say, because more and more people are criticizing Musk, for example, or veterans who are losing personnel and potential benefits. are really upset. And we want them to know that we're good listeners. And we want to create a big open tent for them. And I'm going to be playing a clip of Jane Fonda's speech when she was getting her Lifetime Achievement Award at the SAG Awards in a minute. But there's a few of the things that I wanted to say first, and that is that mind control cultists are trying to overwhelm everybody, make them so afraid, so uncertain that they cower, that they want to crawl into a cave and not think about what's happening. And this is exactly the opposite of what I'm asking everyone to do, which is be a concerned citizen, taking care of yourself, making sure you sleep and eat and exercise and have joy and happiness in your life. Go dancing, listen to music, hang out with friends, enjoy sports, etc. But also be informed and get involved. And if everybody um, does their part, and some people are influencers, some people have 1 million followers or more on social media, and this is a request to you. If you're such a person, you are in a cult yourself, and are willing to speak about your experience to destigmatize it and normalize it, please contact Freedom of Mind. Email us at center@freedomofmind.com. I'm happy to do live stream with you, let you tell your story, or have you on the podcast. We want to amplify the voices of former members to explain to the public that bright, intelligent, educated, accomplished people can be hacked. They can be deceived. And the biggest vulnerability is what is called the myth of invulnerability. Oh, it would never happen to me. I'm too smart. It only happens to those other people. No, it can happen to you. And in fact, it's happened to most people these days online. So we need to build community. We need to be in real life. I'm hearing more and more that for people calling for thought leaders to give them advice on how to proceed. And I wrote up several books on this topic and have an online course, and working on my next project, which will be a course for how to talk to people who've been supportive of the GOP and Trump, and what we can do as an active resistance force to stop this coup that Russia is doing to us. And some people are surprised that there's direct information about Russia recruiting Trump. I knew about this for many years, wrote about it in The Cult of Trump. And I shared an interview with a former KGB official. If you haven't seen it yet, it's the episode with Craig Unger on his book American Compromat, with a K, Compromat, with Yuri Shvets. So with that, I'm going to also say, if you're not aware, that there is a blackout day tomorrow where people are being urged not to go to spend money, especially on Amazon and other big corporate retailers. If you're in a small community and you need something, you can, of course, patronize your local neighbor. But the idea is to send a shock signal. If enough people stop buying for one day, it will show the powers that be that there's a lot of people who are very upset with what's being done here, and we're not powerless. We're going to actively resist and stand up for human rights. So with that, I'm going to ask my team to set up this short video of Jane Fonda that we found on TikTok, and thank Jane for saying these words at such a celebrity-studded event, the SAG Awards. Let's hit it, Jerry. Oops, I'm not hearing it. Still not hearing it, Jerry. All right, we may need to recalibrate and try to figure out what's going on with the video. So oops, let's see if we can bring it back to the beginning and get the sound working. We'll be patient for a minute.
Make no mistake, empathy is not weak or woke. And by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people. A whole lot of people are going to be really hurt by what is happening. We need to call upon our empathy and not judge, but listen from our hearts and welcome them into our tent, because we are going to need a big tent to resist successfully what's coming at us. We must not isolate. We must find ways to project an inspiring vision of the future, one that is beckoning, welcoming, that will help people believe that, to quote the novelist Pearl Cleage, on the other side of the conflagration, there will still be love, there will still be beauty, and there will be an ocean of truth for us to swim in. Let's make it so.
I love there's an ocean of truth to swim in. As a scuba diver, I just love that metaphor. Thank you, Jane Fonda. And it's so true. We need to have hope. It's a human need. And for those people who know my work, I've been quoting Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, that he wrote in 9 days after being liberated from Auschwitz, someone who suffered in 4 different concentration camps. And he saw many people younger and more fit than him die, but he stayed alive to live to 92. And I think he got 29 honorary doctorates because he kept hope. And he kept saying to himself, no matter what level of abuse the Nazis were doing to him, that he's in control of his reactions to the abuse, that he's in control of his own mind and body. And that's what I want to urge people. If he could do it in Auschwitz, life is so much easier for us in the United States of America. Yeah, things are going to get hairy, and we're going to need to help each other, and we will help each other and lift each other up and provide role models for having hope that we're not alone, we're not isolated, and we can do this. So Christine said, love this. Just like how Jane Fonda said, we're all going to need a big tent to deal with what's coming. I'm telling you, our biggest allies are going to be disgruntled former Trump voters. There will be millions. And we don't want further polarization. We want them to begin to understand how their mind got hacked, how they believe lies and pathological liars, who really care about billionaires, who really care about power over, and not about the Constitution, not about democracy, not about women's rights, gay rights, indigenous rights, trans rights, rights of minority religions. The people who are taking power are pushing white nationalism, and it's awful. Let's see. Hope Eternal asks, how can the elite rich get tax cuts when they don't pay any tax? That's a great question. I am not an economist or an accountant. I can tell you that a lot of corporations don't pay tax. Individuals may pay some tax, but let's face it, if you can afford to hire the smartest tax attorneys, people who often used to work for the IRS, they can figure out loopholes, and then they can also cheat. I noticed that a lot of IRS officials were cut from the payroll. So I don't even know what level of IRS scrutiny is going to be leveled, perhaps just at enemies of the administration. In a different dimension, super chat $1.99 from in a different dimension. Thank you so much. I'm learning about super chats and folks giving donations to help the cause. We really want to do more content development and promotion. So I'd really like to not have to do as many client hours and have support for our Substack from subscribers. So if you would consider not having a latte one week and give us $8 for the month, and we have 3,500 folks who do that, then I think we can keep going at the level we're going. And then if we get more, then we can bring on more people and have a bigger reach. Let's see. Smool 1987 asks, help. I am getting depressed by what is happening in our country. Any suggestions? Yes. So it's normal to feel down. It's normal to mourn and grieve over the loss of our country of checks and balances. But the best single thing you can do is be active. It's really therapeutic. Instead of just ruminating on how bad you're feeling, get up and do something. One simple thing, if you really like the freedom of mind work and my influence continuum bite model, download my influence continuum model in color, go print up a bunch of copies, and go around your community. And if you go to get a haircut, ask if you can put it up. If you go to have a restaurant thing, put it up. Laundromat. If you see a therapist, see if they're willing to put it up in their office, your doctor's office. Because once what people can visualize, and maybe we can put it up on the screen for a minute, the influence continuum, once you can understand ethical influence means honesty, informed consent. That looks like it's on an angle for some reason. I'm not sure. Hard to see. Is there a way of making it transparent, Jerry? Anyway, the point is once people understand the differences between legitimate ethical influence and authoritarian mind control, and understand the bite model is the tool for looking at behavior control, information, thought, and emotional control, then you can reality test. And I'm going to also remind people we have bitemodel.com. If you haven't been there yet, we have a free anonymous survey with 40 questions. Put in the name of a group, and it doesn't have to be an unhealthy group. If you want to, run your PTA through it or your corporation or whatever, feel free to. Just you can either find what you want to fill out on the drop-down menu or just add it manually in there, and it will literally give you a number on the influence continuum of how authoritarian or destructive it is. So that's another free tool that we've developed here. Thank you for putting up the URL, that people can reality test, and nobody needs to know what their answer is, what the quotient is that they get. Let's see, Nadia 178 asks, I flee from the country with the regime this country is going for. Do you have any hacks to stay calm? So this is a really important point, that many, many immigrants have come to the United States because they were in a dictatorship, whether it was Russia, whether it was China, or some authoritarian regime. They came here to have freedom, and now they're watching what's happening, and they're realizing, I thought I was safe. I came here, and now what's happening is what I escaped from. Well, what I want to say to you, Nadia, is I don't know the future. I just know that we have a lot of very bright, talented, resourceful Americans, as well as immigrants, that don't want to live under a dictator like Trump, who claims to be a king, or Musk, who some people think has more influence than Donald Trump does. All I can say is, let's take it day by day. Let's focus on what's within our control to do or to influence, and not spend too much time worrying about things outside of our control, because it's very destructive to ruminate on negative thoughts. So I recommend to everybody, if you have the same negative thought more than 3 times, name it. That was 3 times. Take a deep breath in and a longer breath out. That's going to calm down your nervous system. And you can do 10 of those where there's a longer exhale, full exhale. It's going to calm you down. Ask yourself, what's within my control to do? And choose something to do. And I'm offering a simple thing, which is reach out to a family member or friend that you may have stopped talking with or muted or blocked, and say, I like you back in my life. I miss you. Can we have a redo, or can we start over? Can I take you out for coffee? Whatever. Start small. And if they are angry because you mistreated them, apologize. If you do this over time, you're really going to help this person have a face-saving way to exit this authoritarian regime that's coming down the pike. And if you want to do something further, I'm recommending download the Influence Continuum graphic, a version of what was put up here. And make some copies and start sharing it in your community. Help people understand that what's happening isn't just disinformation and deep fakes and propaganda, that we are in psychological warfare territory, where the people who are pushing this authoritarian agenda don't want people to understand what's happening or what their tactics and strategies are. And the best counter strategy is understanding what they're doing, naming it, and doing what's within your control to do. I'm going to add one more thing and then get to the next question. And that is a mistake that a lot of people make on social media. Do you remember when Trump was running in 2016 and the media said that he got $2 billion of free media? Do you remember that? It was because he was deliberately saying outrageous things, and all the media had to cover each outrageous thing. So the public kept hearing Trump, 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 and hearing how outrageous it was, but it was still promulgating this indoctrination. His real name, by the way, is Drumpf, Drumpf, which I learned from a John Oliver show prior to his first election. I think everyone should be calling him Drumpf, actually. But in any case, what you don't want to do on social media, if somebody is saying something outrageous, is respond and amplify the outrageous thing. What you want to do is say the facts. You can reference so-and-so said, something ridiculous. Here's the facts. But we need to understand the psychology of influence. We need to understand we want to be respectful. We want to get people to ask questions and reality test. And please stop trying to persuade people who've been inducted into the cult of Trump. Please stop trying to persuade them through facts or rational argument, because it doesn't work. Okay, let's move on. Hannah Claire 008 asks, what can we do to help break the rose-colored glasses? Good question. I would say the mistake that people make is thinking that they are going to break the people's rose-colored glasses, or they are going to deprogram the other person. What works is empowering the person to think for themselves, to get in touch with their own thoughts and feelings and experiences, and give them tools to reality test, like what is Chinese communist brainwashing and Lifton's 8 criteria, or my bite model, for example, or pimps and traffickers, and the techniques they use to groom people and indoctrinate people. Let's see. Hannah on TikTok sent a few donations. Thanks, Hannah. And B Heard on TikTok also sent a donation. Uncle Hippie also. Thank you, everybody. Come check out the Substack, please. We have so much great stuff, and we'll probably be doing some Substack lives in the future as well, especially for those people who are supporters and subscribers of us. Let's see. Nancy Wallace says, the public doesn't hear enough of you. Are there any actions we can take to get your compelling story out to the media? Does it ever help to write to request they give you airtime? It's wonderful if you do this. What doesn't work is when people tell me I should contact a particular show. People asking for themselves to be put on their show never works. But when people say, I loved your show, I listen to you all the time, one guest that I think you would love to have on, and I know I would love to hear from, is Dr. Steve Hassan. And you can also, depending on who they are, reference other shows that they've done with other experts. And I can tell you that I heard this morning that there was a Huffington Post blog by an ex-Moonie about Pam Hemphill, who is a friend, colleague, someone who was arrested at January 6th, was sentenced, served her time, and didn't want a pardon. But this ex-Moonie, who was born in it, told her story about how it really is a cult of Trump. Only it seems this woman doesn't know I exist, or maybe she's still afraid of me since I was such a devil figure to members of the Moonies. So thank you, Nancy Wallace. Just gave a donation for $5. Yeah, it really helps a lot for you to think about who do you know who has influence. Do you know a congressman, a senator, someone in the media? And if there's a story that's being posted and there are comments online, feel free to cite the bite model of authoritarian control and the influence continuum and my work. Do you know that on May 11th of this year, it will be 49 years since the anniversary of my deprogramming moment? So I got one more year and a couple of months to go, and I'll have my big 5-0 since my family rescued me from the Moonies cult. Okay, let's see. We have another question from PMFG. What are the most effective de-escalation techniques for cult members being aggressive towards non-cult participating relatives and friends when most family members are in the cult? Let me think about that one. What is the most effective de-escalation technique for cult members being aggressive? Well, what I do recommend, if somebody is volume is up and they're being very aggressive, is to just, if it's in person, to look them in the eyes and say, you know, I hear you loud and clear. I'm right here. No need for you to raise your voice. And what you just said is this, this, and this. And it's an active listening technique where you're letting the person know you're really listening. And that if they want to be effective, more effective at communicating their thoughts and feelings, it would work better if it's done with respect. And you will do your best to do that as well. I can tell you the most common mistake with former members, if you were born in a group and you have family still in it, for example, like Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons or Scientology or the Moonies, you know, the most effective thing one can do is get yourself counseled, or at least do a lot of reading and homework and processing of your own cult experience before you try to reach out and help others to reality test. And the analogy I like to cite, I don't know if it holds up anymore, it probably does, but if you're in an airplane, you're told if the oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself first, then help the person next to you. Don't do the person next to you thinking you'll have time to do yourself first. Do yourself first. Let's see. Molly's Burger asks, as federal employees, how can we deliver despite cult government penetrating into our agency? This is a great question, and maybe there are others who have more wisdom than I do. But what I can say is that the Nazis only had 10% in the Nazi party, and the rest of German society went along with them, at least on the surface. And then those with a conscience were conspiring to see what they could do to sabotage things or to undermine things. And so, in a way, acting a bit like, subversive is the word that I want to use. I, on the one hand, love that some high-ranking people are resigning to show their displeasure and that they're not going to be co-opted to do terrible things. That's one choice that everybody can make for themselves. But I also think that we need people to stay in the agencies and do whatever they can to protect the public and to serve the Constitution and such. One of the more horrifying things that Trump has done recently is get rid of the highest judicial the highest judges in the military. And my understanding from listening to the former Air Force undersecretary, I believe, I listened to him read a statement that he made, and he said that it's these people's job to tell soldiers that if the commander-in-chief is giving them an illegal order, one that goes against the Constitution and goes against their conscience, it's up to them to say, you don't need to comply. So Trump wanted and did get rid of this important checks and balances. And the question is, why did he do that? And then I was listening this morning to a show where it was talking about how upset Trump was with Esper, because back when George Floyd was murdered by a police officer, Trump wanted the military to come out with guns against the protesters. And Esper said, no, we're not using the military on civilians. It's against the law. So Trump is setting himself up that if there are violent protesters, the military may be ordered to shoot their family members and friends. So as scary as that is, it's another reason we want to be in touch with our family and friends who are in the military and talking about what did they sign up for, and would they just do whatever they're ordered to do blindly or not? So it's really an existential moment in human history with authoritarianism using the powers of AI and social media and big platforms to mind control hundreds of millions of citizens around the world. So what are we going to do about it? Well, realize your mind can get hacked. Realize that real life isn't online. It's in real life, real friends. And we need to really become scrupulous about what kinds of things we're allowing into our brains. Let's see, Birdie Mom 43. Curious what kind of birds you have. Parrots, parakeets. Anyway, cockatoos. What if they are the ones who said the terrible things and they don't want to be friends anymore unless you agree with them? That's a great question. So when I think about past interactions and people that I've coached over the decades, often cult members don't even remember what they said. You remember it. So if you're interacting with them, what you're not going to do is remind them of all the nasty things they said. And if you say, listen, you're my brother, you're my sister, you're my aunt, you're my uncle, you're my mom, I love you and I want to be in your life. And if they say, well, I need you to agree with everything, okay, well, let's talk about it. Tell me one thing that you think I don't agree with you on, and let's discuss it. But I believe that people can be in each other's lives, love each other, interact with each other, and disagree and have fundamentally different opinions on things. And that would be my hope, that we can get to a place like that. What I want to say finally for this point is people in mind control cults are pretty darn rigid. They've been indoctrinated into a black and white, all or nothing, good versus evil, us versus them ideological framework. And it's my opinion that people who are free, like us, should have the burden to be more flexible. Instead of them expecting them to be flexible, let's be flexible. Let's be strategic. And I'm not saying fight fire with fire, no, but I'm also saying the number one agenda is empowering people to think for themselves, and that the way to get them to think is to ask a thoughtful, respectful question and be patient, wait for an answer, and then follow up. Okay, Devin Farkas, thank you for your super chat donation. Hey, Steve, a horrified 24-year-old here. How do you deal with fellow coworkers who publicly support the MAGA regime? So, coworkers. So, a lot of it comes down to, do you know who you are? Do you know your value system? Do you understand what a cult is and what mind control is? And if you really have a very clear understanding of that, and you have coworkers who are publicly supporting the MAGA regime, be friendly, be warm, get them a cup of coffee. If they sneeze, say, God bless you. Treat them with warmth. Let them, if they're going to be mean to you, and then you can say, I would like to get along. Can't we? We're both Americans. So help them get out of this black and white, us versus them, good versus evil view. And what I haven't said this in this live stream, but I've said it multiple times over my career, I take the position that, hey, I'm a human being and I could be wrong, and I'm open to changing my mind. So if you're so sure that Hubbard was the greatest man in human history and that Scientology tech is superior to everything else, let's talk about it. Please convince me. What I won't do is go do the courses. I'll say to the person, I like you. You're involved with the group. You explain it to me. And if they say, well, I don't really know it well enough to explain it to you, then say, that's really perplexing to me, because if I'm going to dedicate my life or my time and my money to something, I want to be able to understand it well enough to explain it to somebody else. Remember, everybody in mind control cults has doubts. Seriously. They may not share them publicly. I certainly didn't when I was a Mooney fanatic. I didn't know I had doubts until I had the opportunity to be away from the group, sleeping, eating, meeting with ex-members in a deprogramming context. And I had all these memories of doubts that started to surface that I had suppressed through thought stopping. Let's see. Be Heard asks, how much does how the brain is wired contribute to making a MAGA mind? Absolutely. I can talk a lot about that. I can say that folks who are neurodiverse, and we just published a Psych Today piece on this, folks who are neurodiverse often are targeted by authoritarian cults. They may have high anxiety because it's difficult for them to read facial cues, social cues. They may get recruited while video gaming or doing some other online activity where they're lied to, they're surrounded, etc. But as a species, we've been so successful because we have brains that are learning organs, and we adapt to our environments unconsciously. And if you can control someone's behavior and their sleep and their environment and words in that environment, the brain starts rewiring to fit in. And another key concept in my work is describes it's a dissociative disorder. So in the case of Steve Hassan, there was the real Steve Hassan from Flushing, Queens, New York, who wrote poetry, and the Mooney Steve Hassan, who was a devotee of Sun Myung Moon and Hak Chahan, the true parents of the universe. But when I was deprogrammed, the real me came out. And I had all these memories of things that happened that really sucked in the Moonies. Let's see. Susie on TikTok sent a donation. Thanks, Susie. We're getting lots of support there from TikTok. I have real concerns about TikTok. Don't get me started. But my team is like, Steve, we've got to be on TikTok. There's so many people there who need your stuff. So thanks, Cami, for doing the TikTok for us. Let's see. Christine with an AQ. Friends of mine are expressing full-on panic, wanting to escape the U.S. I'm also not feeling safe as a woman here. How can I support them and myself to feel more safe? So there are a lot of people who are panicking. And again, it's an issue of how to know what the right decision is. I can say that being a woman is not a reason to leave the US. if you are Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney or Jamie Raskin or Jim McGovern or Rachel Maddow or Steve Hassan, there may come a time where we are muzzled or threatened or sued so that we may not be able to continue being physically in the United States. But for me, I don't have anywhere else. I want to be here. I want to be a vocal opponent of mind control authoritarianism and educate people. And I also think if I go somewhere else, if they want to come after me, they could come after me anywhere in the world, really. So unless I'm muzzled completely, or I go completely dark and stop posting and doing live streams, I would think that the bad actors would want to muzzle this. But that's another reason I'm telling people, get my books now. They may get banned. They may come off Amazon. And I can tell you that truth is stronger than lies, and love is stronger than fear. I know that sounds Pollyannish, but I really believe it. Okay, let's move on. Justin Hallis, 904. What would you say the difference is in those who are in office or Congress switch from denouncing Trump to now supporting him in comparison to those who are his supports and brainwashed like January 6th? Very interesting. I believe it was Senator Tillis went public and said that he was told by the FBI there were credible death threats against him and his family if he didn't confirm Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. And he voted to confirm when he said he wasn't going to. And to me, that's extortion. That should be criminal. And every adult has to make their own decisions, but it seems very clear that the people that Trump is putting into place as loyalists would throw him under the bus in a minute if they thought they could get away with it. And it's something that dictators live with, like Vladimir Putin is always worried that somebody's going to knock him off. Seriously. And who in America wants to live in Russia, honestly? Who wants to live in a homophobic, misogynist, country with criminals running it that blow planes up because their opponents are in it or give them poisoning? I mean, seriously, we don't want to be taken over by Russia, but that's apparently what's going on right now. Maybe China's got a chunk as well. And maybe Musk wants to get rid of all of them and be the superpower with Bezos and Zuckerberg, as Ian Bremmer has talked about. What's clear is we don't know what the future is. What we can say is, let's do what we can now to move ourselves and our family and our friends and our loved ones in a healthy direction. And when people ask me, what's a healthy direction? I say planetary survival should be our goal. Planetary survival. Not just American survival, planetary survival. We need air. We need the oceans. We need to cut down on fossil fuel pollution and warming. Seriously, it's our habitat. It's our home. And the billionaires who are having these crazy beliefs, and I'll do a shout out for Greg Epstein's book, Tech Agnostic, fantastic book. And he talks about long-termism, transhumanism, accelerationism, and crypto as ideologies of these tech billionaires that is not in line with democratic values and human rights. Lady Godiva. Steve, I think what people can't get on board with is ignoring verbal and emotional abuse. They don't remember. Come on, Steve. Thank you, Lady Godiva. I am not communicating to anybody that you should allow yourself to be abused. So if I said anything that people could misinterpret, that means that they're standing there and they're being verbally abused for 30 minutes. No, you have a right to be talked to with respect and kindness. And if someone is not willing to uh, um, lower their volume, speak respectfully, then you say, you know, I'm not comfortable standing here being verbally abused. I'm open to having a respectful conversation. I hope in the future you'll consider changing your mind. I'm open to it because you're my brother or you're my mother. But I have to leave now, and then leave. So I'm definitely not an advocate for allowing anyone to be subjected to trauma and abuse. Michael, I find the connection of autism neurodivergence with cults to be fascinating. Where can we read this article, Steve? Psychology Today blog is the latest one. I also have Substack articles on high-functioning folks with Asperger's. I interviewed the world's authority, Tony Atwood, on Asperger's. I actually asked him about Elon Musk in that interview. And what can I say? Being neurodiverse can be a superpower. Some people just have genius memories and ability to focus and concentrate, but they also have vulnerabilities that cult recruiters can exploit. And that's why I really am saying to everyone who can listen to me is be an educated consumer. Have your antenna up. Doot, 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 doot. If someone is trying to push you to do something fast, doot, 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 doot. If someone is saying something too many times without giving you evidence, as if they're trying to just force it down your throat, you should be like, doot, 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 so that you can protect yourself. And one interesting technique that I sometimes recommend to folks is just, I don't know if you remember Star Trek, where they have force fields, protective screens, screens up, Scotty. Like, walk around with your defenses up. Especially around people that you don't know or when you're going online. And please don't go into rabbit holes online. Like, be very deliberate. Remember, your phone is a tool. You shouldn't be controlled by your phone. Likewise, your thoughts are a tool. You shouldn't be controlled by your thoughts. Your feelings you should not be controlled by your feelings. You should have executive control over your mind-body relationship. Let's see, David Wicklin. Who would you say are political cultists on the left? Would Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez be constituted as a growing cult leader, or just the opposition to right-wingers like MGT, Boebert, and Trump? It's a very good question, and it speaks to my influence continuum, which was just up a moment ago. It's up there. We're going to get one for you, Jerry, that isn't transparent, because I think the one that I'm holding is easier for people to see. But I think cults exist along the entire continuum, from healthy to unhealthy. So are there leaders on the progressive side? Sure. But then the question is, are they psychologically healthy? Do they know their own limits? Are they willing to apologize if they make a mistake? So these types of qualities of healthy leadership and healthy organizations is what we want. That's much better. Thank you so much. So is Taylor Swift a cult leader? Maybe, but her followers love her. They love her music. They memorize her songs. They pay money to go around the world to listen to her concerts, but they're not being lied to. They're not being exploited. They're not being asked to isolate from family and friends. They're not being given a black and white all or nothing ideology. So that's the criteria I use and recommend that people think about. And in many ways, the cult word is really problematic. And if a word doesn't serve, don't use it. Talk about authoritarian versus progressive, or, healthier. Use words that work. I'm quoting from a Republican strategist, Frank Luntz's book, Words That Work. The Geo Vivo, any advice on studying psych and how to specialize in the psychology behind cults? Sure, I have a course on my website. It now has CE credits for psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, and there's versions of it for everybody else that doesn't need CE credits. It's a little over 9 hours. That course will help give you a foundation. We have a course workbook about to be published soon that adds a lot of material from that course. And if you haven't yet read my books, I recommend starting with Combating Cult Mind Control, then Freedom of Mind, then The Cult of Trump. And all of these books are on audio, as well as digital and paperback for your reading pleasure. And what we're wanting to do for clinicians who've finished my course already is offer online supervision, ongoing supervision, so people can bring their cases, and I can, with my team, advise how to best approach and learn and grow. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any graduate program in the United States teaching how to counsel cult members. I'm aware of one course in England at the University of Salford for a master's in coercive control, but it's not a counseling focus. It's more social psychology focus. So there's lots of room to learn and grow. And I can say, as a former Moonie, I feel like I have had an advantage in being able to understand people that have come to me for healing, because I've had a lot of healing myself and therapy myself after the abuse that I suffered. So, but you don't have to have been in a cult to be a good therapist who specializes in helping folks in cults. So it's, wow, the time has flown by. I can say that thank you for your attention. Please think about following me on my social media. If I see a post that you like, please amplify it, share it. And I interviewed Christopher Goldsmith, Veterans Against Fascism. He's recommending people create book clubs in their local community as a way of gathering people in real life, reading a book and discussing it. We have a whole reading list that we can share if anyone wants to start a book club to learn about cult mind control, and in particular, the cult of Trump. And I want to thank my team for doing this live stream. Till next week. We're going to do another one. I think Wednesday at 1 o'clock is what we're aiming at for next week. Thanks so much, and take care.